I'm Betsy Ashton, and I do portraits. And so a lot of people are very interested about the process of how do you find people, how do they find you, how do you do them? Do you do them like they look, or whatever? And so it's kind of fun. So I'm prepared to talk about that. We'll talk about this one. I've got a couple other things. I brought some shots of some other horror show paintings that we've done, which are kind of fun. And we'll tell you some of the funny behind the scenes stories, because doing this kind of work is different from doing this or this or this. I mean, you have all of these wonderful abstracts, and you have Susan's lovely landscapes. So if you move a tree and you put it over here, that's okay. You know, you have a line and you put it here instead of here, that's fine, that's creative. But you can't move the nose. Unless, of course, you're Picasso, that's a different thing. But if you're trying to do a portrait, you have in the beginning, the picture has to really look like the person. I think it has to go further than that. To me, it has to capture the spirit of the person, which is why I like to spend time talking to people, spend time with them, seeing what they're doing. And how did this one come about? This guy is a fabulous composer.
Oh, thank you.
And so we met, however, sometimes you meet in strange ways. We met because of our dogs. He and his lovely wife, Gemma, were in the dog park. I was walking Banjo into the park and sat on the bench, and these two lovely people were there, and they're talking in this marvelous accent, which I mistook for Irish. And of course they said, no, we're Scottish. And I thought, oh, dear, that was a faux pas. But anyway, we proceeded. They've been University of Edinburgh, and they're here, and we just get to talking, and lo and behold, he tells me he's a composer. Well, my husband's a composer. And so we get to talking, and he knows all this equipment, and Jim was wanting to find out about this, that, and the other thing. Well, he knows it. Not only that, he has it. So the next thing you know, I am saying, oh, well, let's get together. Well, we get together, and now he's sort of like my son, you know? The son I never had, and his lovely wife, the daughter, and because they're here and their families are elsewhere, so we're kind of mom and dad. You know, we've adopted them, which is wonderful.
Indeed.
Well, the best thing is I got to sit and hear him play his music and improvise. And I just said, I have to paint you. I just have to paint you. And that's how it all started. And so this one started out by me being there, and I always want to do something from life. So the first thing I did was I just did a sketch. It often starts out with a live sketch, because I want to do something with two eyes that can see you're going to have to help me here, that. And then I started getting a series of photographs of him working. This was one, and different moods. Here is the one that really we all loved, and he said, yeah, that's me. That's the way I feel when I'm working. And so this became my primary reference photo. Now, ideally, I would have set up my easel and painted here, but there's not quite that much space in the room. So I had to take the reference photos and the sketches back to my studio. And there's some other things that happen when you're doing this. And then the other thing that's helpful, I start doing things that are helpful. I'll do a black and white of the photograph, taking the color out, because the values are key. If you're going to do something that looks like somebody, in order to get form, you want the values, and that's the most important thing, the lights and the darks. Then you add the color in to be the color value. But that's how you get something that looks like the person. I also do some close-ups of critical things. Hands are among the most difficult thing to paint, because of course all those little forms that are working together. So I blow these up and I tape them all over my studio. Then when I start, I usually start with an underpainting of a color. That's, if this is going to be something where a warm color is what I want to pop out, I'll start with a cold background. So I started out with the blue. And that will come through in little bits. It had sort of a frisson to the painting, a little bit of excitement. Then I start the drawing. I'll work with a grid. I'll put a grid on the photograph. I'll put a grid on the big canvas so that I can kind of rough in and block in the shapes. I don't want to draw it too detailed because I don't want it to get tight. I want it to have still a nice loose quality. But here I've started to block in the color and started to block in the figure. And that's kind of how it begins. But then, of course, there are decisions to be made. Now, he has this beautiful dog. And when I was painting him, the dog's picture was up on the monitor. And I said, oh, Pixel, I've got to put Pixel in it. And then I started thinking, if I put Pixel in here, now it's a portrait. It fights with it. It's too much. You have to start taking things out. And I'll show you one other thing, where the key with the painting, you have to start taking things out to be the essence. What do you see here that looks a little weird in the photograph that was the primary?
The mic stand that comes from his
The microphone falling out of his nose. Isn't that helpful? Yes. So we don't have the mic stands in here. There's a lot that's been simplified because what I want every line, everything important to go where? Right to the face. The whole thing. This is the most important thing. It's this man, it's what he's creating, and how he's working. And if you'll notice, in the photograph, see how sharp all these edges are? When you look at somebody, when you look at their face, there's background. You know, look at me. You see background here, but it's fuzzy if you're looking at me. Well, that's also to keep you in the painting. Thank you very much. But also, these are very soft edges. This is taken back so that it's not as black and white as it is, so that the strongest contrast is in the most important thing and everything else gets softened. So I had a lot of fun doing this. Now, I also was a little upset the lighting that I had in the studio wasn't great. So I said, no, you got to come into my studio. You got to sit for me at least once. So I started doing some other photographs just to get better lighting, as much as somebody can come back, you know, and so that you can use two eyes. And besides, he's fun to have around. You know, it helped with getting the painting done. How you do this work presents challenges. On the other hand, you meet wonderful people. You have a lot of fun. And I love to do it. But I'm also working on a big special project now that's not commissioned, where I'm being kind of like the reporter that I used to be, and I'm looking for immigrants. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But at any rate, they're not hard to find at all if you just open your eyes and look around.